The concept for EPARTRADE is basically, in my opinion, there's a big hole in the internet. So the internet started many years ago, but there's never been an online business community for racers on the World Wide Web. The need for EPARTRADE is actually quite obvious. Basically, people in the business of auto racing need a place online to hang out and get their problems solved.
It's extremely simple for a buyer or for a supplier to interact on the platform. The first thing you need to do is sign in, which is free. And the second thing is, when you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information. If it's a company, you click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
You can go to epartrade.com, you become part of a community of businesses in racing, and it makes sourcing products much easier than just on the internet or using Google.
At EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier through an email.
More than that, it's a place to go just to keep current every day. So it's a good place to start your workday in your racing business or in your offices of your professional race team. And you know you're current when it comes to new technology, industry news, technical papers, technical videos, all of that and more. We're not looking for a million hits per day. All we want is people who are really the volume buyers of racing products in the racing industry to be part of the little world of EPARTRADE. We have racing businesses participating from around the world. So you get suppliers from around the world, you get buyers from around the world.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Welcome to Race Industry Now, the technical and business webinar series from EPARTRADE, presented to you by ARP and Performance Plus Global Logistics. I am Francisque Savignan, the founder and CEO of EPARTRADE, the global platform for the performance and racing industry. This is episode 234. We're going to be talking engine management system with Haltech. With me this morning are Judy Keane, the co-founder of EPARTRADE, and a wonderful host, Mr. Jeff Hammond, who is doing back-to-back, right? Judy, how are you?
Yes, we have Jeff Hammond back-to-back week. So good morning, everyone. In case you missed last week, we announced that we are doing Race Industry Week, and Speed Sport News joined us. So Joe Tripp, Ralph Shahan, so we're excited about that. And everybody is welcome to register now. That one link, when you register, will get you in to any of the webinars that we've got going all week long, 55 hours of content. So we're producing that now, working on it. So you're welcome to register. So on to you, Jeff.
Judy, only 55 hours worth of Race Industry Week now? I mean, come on, can we not add a few more hours? I'm getting charged up and ready to go.
Well, we could, but 55 hours is enough.
Well, we probably need to move on. I think I see two gentlemen right now that look like they're chomping at the bit to educate us in what they do best, and that is ECUs. And guys, good morning. How are you?
We're doing well. Thank you.
So Thomas, tell us, and Nick, I mean, the thing is, I did some reading and did a little bit of understanding what your company is all about. And it fascinates me how that little bitty box can tell you so much. I mean, I'm still mystified all these years of being around racing, how you can build this stuff and it amasses so much information. It can do so much, and yet it comes in such a small package.
Yeah. I mean, technology has come a long way over the past, 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, even if you look at like cell phones nowadays, they're smaller and do more than ever. And that technology kind of spans across everything, including aftermarket ECUs. You can pack a lot of information, a lot of functionality, a lot of benefit into a fairly small box nowadays, which is really, really impressive, like you were saying. So, yeah.
So, Thomas, what is new on the Haltech radar?
So as of right now, within the last year, we've really grown a lot of traction with our Nexus R5. That's our top of the line ECU. It has a lot of built-in features such as a wideband, PDM, and what we like to do is that's our vehicle management system. So it's gone one step further. The traditional was you have one box that controls your engine. Now we've gone one step further and now we control a vehicle. So if you have a full race car, you're doing a full chassis build, everything from headlights, taillights, passing signals, all of those things, you can wire it in. And then we've also just recently launched our PD16, which is another additive that you can add to the rear of the vehicle, front of the vehicle, once again, for lights, fuel pumps, things like that, anything you want to power.
So with anything you want to power, approximately, how many channels, how many circuits can you put on this thing?
So the PD16 has 16 channels in it. It has
Okay.
4 25 amp outputs that are all solid state, and they're all programmable when it comes to their fuse currents and limits and stuff like that. And then it has 12 8 amp outputs. 10 of them are a traditional, just regular 8 amp, and then 2 of them are going to be a half bridge, so they can actually send power or ground if you wanted them to, which you could use for like DC motors, like a drive-by-wire throttle body or an electronic wastegate, stuff like that. And then the Nexus R5 actually has 20 PDM channels built into it. And that's that vehicle management system that Thomas was just talking about. So it'll run your engine, which that's fine, but it'll also control your chassis, fans, fuel pumps, wipers, lights. We put these on cars and we remove every fuse and relay out of the entire car. It's all done through one box now, and all of it's loggable. So if you have an issue, you don't have to get a multimeter and go digging through your car under your hood. You can connect to it via Wi-Fi with your laptop and look over all of the data, look over the amp draw on the specific channel that you're having a problem with, and the ECU or the VCU will tell you what's going on. It'll paint you a nice little picture of, hey, this is what happened. And then all you have to do is go out and confirm it physically on the car. So.
Way you just described that, guys, and I apologize if I'm using an analogy that maybe I shouldn't, but it's almost like, that the movie with Tom Hanks when they were trying to go, to the moon, and they had the problem, and all of a sudden you see people inside the space shuttle and everything that they're trying to figure out amperage and this and that and all the routing of the wires and trying to figure out how can we save power, how can we figure out what this problem is and what this is going to do. It just, to me, that's what popped in my head. You're describing all this and I'm seeing somebody, because I'm thinking about, if there's one thing about race cars that used to scare the bejesus out of me, was wiring. I mean, if it was anything over an on and off switch, I didn't like it. You know what I'm saying? I was okay running a fan off to one side, giving it its own circuit. But when you start getting to 16 and probably more as we move in the future, you got to simplify that some way or another. And you already have. I mean, that to me is what is impressive already, is you can get your laptop out, you can plug in this thing, and all of a sudden they're communicating, showing you pictures, and you're able to, basically get a guided instructions on how to solve the problem. Am I understanding this correct?
Yeah. So, and the funny thing about that on the wiring side of things, it actually simplifies the wiring. So if you think about a traditional setup where you have a battery, you have a fuse, you have a relay. Well, you have a wire from the battery, goes to your fuse, comes out of the fuse, goes to pin 30 on the relay. Then you have to have the control circuit of the relay, your switch power and your ground to activate it. And those both have to go to different parts of the car. Even if you had a regular ECU or a switch panel, the ground trigger goes to that. The switch side goes to your ignition switch or your on for your car. And then you have the 87 pin of the relay that goes to whatever you're trying to turn on. Well, with a PDM, you have none of that. We can do a keypad, like a CAN-based keypad, so 4 wires, that goes to the ECU, and that can be all of your switches. And then you can also program logic if you want it to turn on at a certain temperature or a certain RPM or whatever you want. You literally just have a power wire that comes from the Nexus R5 or our PD16, goes directly to your fan, fuel pump, light, whatever you're trying to turn on or on. and then you can ground that device directly at the chassis. So you literally went from having to have at minimum 4 wires to run a relay to 1 wire. So it sounds, really complicated, but it actually does simplify quite a bit and make it a lot easier for someone who's not as well versed as, in wiring. It makes it a lot easier for them to understand. It's just, I want to turn this on. I'm just sending it power.
Yeah. Well, you just described me. And the other thing that I take out of that is, if you're paying attention, old school racers, you're saving me weight. You're simplifying it, but at the same time, you're saving me weight. I don't need, a complete wiring harness that weighs, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 pounds of copper wire run throughout the car. Now all of a sudden, I'm getting it down where it's effective and more efficient, but again, saving me weight.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, tell me, Thomas, where can we, expect to see this Haltech unit being used next? I mean, are there any series you're working with, or what's
So we've really done a push with the Grid Life series and the GLTC guys. It's that's an entry level to mid level road racing series that has definitely taken off. You get a lot more guys that are joining that. We've done a lot of things with a lot of the off-road series. We're starting to get into Ultra 4 and a lot of the off-road stuff like that. We're also looking at some of the boat series, some of the hydroplane stuff. So it's really starting to take off. And the Super Utes in Australia as well, the V8 series, is a really nice series. And like I said, we've sponsored that. It's kind of where you want to go with it. As far as the applications itself, you can do everything from all different types of vehicles.
All right, with what you just said there, I want to back up here and say, you said the Marine series and off-road. So undoubtedly, this is a very durable piece. And at the same time, I assume it's waterproof.
It is IP67 rating.
Okay.
So not
That's
fully
kind of like
submergible, but rated to, I want to say it's 3 meters for like 30 minutes or something like that.
Right.
So we put these things on boats. I actually just worked with a hydroplane racing team. I'm still currently working with them, but they have an R5 on their hydroplane boat. And this thing does 200 miles an hour on the water. And this thing lives there happily, doesn't have any issues. So they're rated to be in the elements. I wouldn't put it on a submarine, but or plan to sink it, but it's definitely able to live in the elements without any issue.
Well, I mean, again, yourself, it's once you go in this direction, I mean, that's what makes your vehicle operate and perform. So, when you go to those kind of reliability, questions, you always want to think the best and always assume that everything that you're feeling about it is accurate, the durability and, what uses. And I'm sure that, if we're talking, I call in and I do understand y'all have I guess you might say a question and answer phone line. So if you have a problem, if you got questions about your product, you can call them up and they can answer them for you. So if I'm getting ready to build something, whether it's a dragster, whether it's, a late model stock car that I'm getting ready to run at my local short track, but I want this technology because they'll allow us to do it, I can call you and get any kind of information that will guide me in the right direction for what I need and how I need to apply it.
Correct. Yeah. We do offer 24 hours of technical support. We have multiple offices across the world. And therefore, if you call, like I said, most people, they don't get to work on their car during 8 to 5. They get to work on their car from 5 p.m. till 2 in the morning. And when you're out there struggling at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, you want somebody to be able to call, and you can with us. You can pick up the phone and you can talk to somebody. We can remote into your system and we can take a look at it and we can diagnose it and walk you through it.
Whoa. You can literally go into the system and help us in that direction right there as far as.
Yeah. So the software actually has that built into it. So you don't even have to go anywhere else. In the Haltech software, which I'll show you guys here in a little bit, you can go up to the very top of the screen and there's a little help button. You click the
Right.
help button and there's a little thing, a little drop down, and it says remote help. If you call us and I say, hey, let me look at your screen, let me see what we're working with, I say, go to the top of the screen, click
Yep.
help, click remote help. And depending on how fast your internet is, within about 7 seconds, I'm controlling your computer and I can go through and show you what's going on, help you diagnose. And the thing is, it's not just answering a question. Like everybody that works here that answers the phones, we're not somebody who can just read you a manual. You know, I own a personal race car. He has a race car. You know, we do this stuff not just during work. We do this after hours. We do this, you know, as a living. So we actually have real world experience with what most people are going through. And so I'm not just going to read you a manual and say, well, have you turned it off and turned it back on like regular tech support? I'm actually able to go in and say, well, what are you trying to do? You know, let's look at different ways we can do that. Let's look at our options. Let's make this work the best that it can and actually provide you with real world experience from my personal experience and years of racing that might be able to assist with what you're trying to do. So
Now, Thomas, I understand how you could be so to the point when you were describing, we don't do 8 to 5 working on our race car. We do that from 5 to 2, because that's kind of like the magic number for a lot of, I think, short track and, I guess you might homebody type racers, I want to call it. 2 o'clock's about where you try to say about all I can stand. I need a few hours sleep before I go back to my real job. So I can appreciate that a whole lot. And I think I think that would put you in a category that very few companies can hang their hat on, that we're with you 24 hours a day, no matter where you are or what time, we'll be there for you.
And we do as a company, you think about it. When you go to race events aren't during the week, race events are on the weekends. So not only do we have 24 hours of tech support, most of the bigger events and sanctioning bodies that have races, we go to those events. We have a tech team that shows up on site. We'll have a booth set up. They can have assistance with wiring, or like I said, technical question. Somebody has an issue that runs our product. They come up to our booth and say, hey, I need a tech guy. Well, automatically we send them with a laptop, send them down to the pit, and they can get right in there with the customer and be able to help them solve their issue.
The one thing I'm gonna do a no-no, but I'm gonna ask, what's the most common problem that most people run into when they come for help? I mean, is there a common issue? Is it a ground? Is it an alternator that's not putting out enough? What is the most common issue you guys run into? Because I'm sure y'all talk about them over coffee breaks.
So it depends on the level of customer. If you have a new customer that has just got our product and just plugged in and is trying to set it up, the big thing that a lot of them don't necessarily know how to do is with any EFI system, you have to sync the timing where the computer, if it thinks it's at, the engine's at 10 degrees, is the engine actually at 10 degrees? So you have to sync those timing to make it where they both think they're on the same page, basically. So for a new user, I'd say that's the most common mistake that most people make, is they don't realize how to do that. And we do have a pretty good YouTube channel that actually explains lots of things. And there's a video on this that we have that walks you through how to set what we call a TDC offset. But for a more advanced user, somebody who's maybe at the track who needs assistance, a lot of time, it's not necessarily that they don't know how to do what they're trying to do. It's that they have 9 million other things going on and they can't think clearly. So they're trying to worry about, okay, what suspension changes did I make? When do I need to be up in the pit lanes? If they have family there, where are my kids running around? What are they doing? Did so-and-so make sure that the oil's topped off? Is the trans cooler plugged in? Like, they have all these hundreds of things going on that they're trying to focus on, and they can't just sit down and say, okay, this is my problem. This is what I need to figure out. And all it takes is a fresh set of eyes. Most of the people that I help when I'm at the track, they have that like aha moment where I'll walk up, I'll look at some data logs with them, because typically we'll be in their pits using their laptop. We'll bring ours as well, but most of these guys have their own. And you'll show them what they've been looking for, and they'll be like, man, I didn't even think to look there. And it's not because they don't know, it's just because they got 9 million other things to worry about. So having that ability to have just another set of eyes, another perspective of someone who's trained in this stuff really goes a long way. It's not that these guys don't know how to use it. it's that they got so much other stuff to worry about that's not as important as some of the other stuff right now, but they do need to get it figured out.
I hear that. Now you said, Nick, here in a little bit, you were going to show us some stuff because Tim Johnson was curious to know, are you going to have a demo of the system and explain some of the stuff we're talking about right now?
Yeah, of course. I actually have the software already opened up on another page. So at some point we can move that over. And if you want, you can either take some, questions from the internet. I believe that we talked about that a little bit.
Right.
Or you can just ask me, hey, how would I do this? And I'll show you, how to navigate the software and how to do that and how easy it is to kind of make those changes and do what you want to do. So.
Well, I'm not going to try to rush you, but if you have something that we can get a picture with and do a screen share, then that way I think we may get a few more questions if we go ahead and start that process now, because I'd hate to wait much longer and all of a sudden show it and we get, inundated with questions and not have enough time to be able to answer them, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, happy to do it. I'll get Chris to go ahead and pull that stuff up and get it where you can see our screen and I have the NSP software open.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Can you see our screen on your end?
I do.
All right. So do you see the NSP software we have open here?
Yes, sir.
All right. So when you open this, it won't necessarily look like this. You'll have to go up top, click File, New, and you can download this for free. This isn't something that you have to pay for. You can go to our website right now and download this software. But this will allow us to play with the software without actually even owning one of our ECUs. So if you were wanting to kind of see what you're getting yourself into before you spend the money, you could download the software. Like I said, click File, New. It's going to pop up. We have all of our ECUs listed, so you could actually pick the exact ECU that you purchased. For the sake of this, we're going to do our R5. And then these are all the different firmware versions. So a big thing about us is we actually do lots and lots of updates, and they're all free. So if somebody calls in and says, hey man, I really wish that your product did this. I've used another system, or I thought it was a cool idea. And if that's something that we think will benefit other customers, then we'll pass that along and we'll see what we can do to accommodate. And that's what all of these different, what we call firmwares are. So these are all updates or upgrades or things that we fixed or added, so on and so forth. So we'll click the newest one and we'll hit OK. It'll load up, and then we're now in the software. So you can see that you have a bunch of stuff going on. You have a bunch of little options over here. You have some tabs up at the top, some different tables. When you're connected to an engine, all of this stuff will display actual data from that engine or from that ECU in real time. But we'll kind of run from the top. So first thing, we want to name, the ECU. So we'll just name it test for now. And then obviously we have our ECU information here. You can go through, we'll start at engine configuration. This is where you can set up what kind of engine that you're using, the engine capacity, 4-stroke, 2-stroke rotary, amount of cylinders, just basic engine information. And you can kind of keep going through all of your sensors that we can run, your basic fuel information. And then if we open up that node, all of your main tables, like your fuel table. And then you have like a 3D graph over here that you can use to spot low spots and help tune. And then, like I said, it's all pretty self-explanatory, but it's all listed. You'll notice though, that you have some things that are lit up in red. The ECU is smart enough to tell you when there's a problem. If you have something set up incorrectly, or if you've accidentally, clicked something that you didn't mean to click, it'll light up red and tell you, hey, I've turned on, we'll say boost control for this instance, but we get a little red exclamation mark, and it tells me this function has unassigned or invalid connections. So we'll go down here to wiring, which is also in red, and look, it tells me that this boost control output is actually being used for something else. So we could change that real quick just to make it go away. And then our warning went away. So the system's smart enough to kind of walk you through what you can do and what you can set up. It won't let you pick the wrong things in most cases, which is nice. Earlier, we were kind of talking about the PDM stuff. And so I'll kind of give you an example of how we would set up, let's pick a You think a fan or a fuel pump? What do you want to pick? We'll do a fan. So
Yeah.
we already have a fan turned on. It's our coolant temp. So this will be like our main radiator fan. We can obviously choose lots of other options here. If you had like an oil cooler fan or a trans fan or a separate fan for maybe your AC condenser or something of that nature, we'll leave it as coolant temp for now. You can see our basic settings here of when we want the fan to turn on, when we want it to turn off. This will also, if you're using idle control, just like the car that you drove to work today, your idle bumps up a little bit when your fan turns on to compensate for the load the engine's under. We can adjust all that stuff here as well. We'll go to our wiring. You can see that our thermal fan number 1 output is set to a 25 amp, that 25A output. So we go through here, it's a 20 amp limit. We can soft start. So say you don't want to pulse width modulate this fan, you want to just turn it on and turn it off at a set point, but you don't want to deal with that inrush current that a lot of bigger fans, fuel pumps have when you turn them on, because they take more amperage to get spinning. And then once they're up to speed, they'll kind of maintain at a lower amperage. We can actually use a soft start in here and tell it for the first 3 seconds that we turn this fan on, only allow the fan to have 10 amps. The fan may pull 17 amps, but we're only going to allow it to have 10 for the first 3 seconds. That gets the fan spinning. And then after that 3 seconds, it'll allow it to go to a max of 20 amps before it blows the theoretical fuse that's programmed in here. If it does blow that fuse, now we can pick the maximum amount of retries. So I can say no retry. So if it blows the fuse, just like a regular car, the fuse is blown. The only way to reset it would be to cycle the key or cycle the ignition. Or we can tell it, hey, I want you to have 2 retries, and I want you to wait 2 seconds between each of those retries. So this is extremely valuable for, say, a road race car, like we were talking about earlier, a GLTC. Let's imagine that this isn't a fan, but a fuel pump, because I have these same settings for anything that I'm controlling with the PDM. Say you're on track and you're in the last couple laps and you've let the fuel get a little bit low and you haven't pulled in to refill or something like that, and you go around a corner and your fuel pump is no longer submerged in fuel, and your fuel pump gets a little hotter than normal and pulls 2 or 3 more amps than normal. Because it's a little hotter, it's not submerged in fuel because you're going around that corner and the fuel sloshes. Well, in a typical car, you'd blow your fuse. If you were right there at the limit of what the fuse was rated at, you'd blow your fuse. They'd have to yellow flag everybody. They'd have to get a tow truck, come tow you off the track. It's this big 35, 40-minute ordeal to get you off the track before they can race again. But with this, I can say, hey, I want you to retry, 5 times. I want you to wait 1 second between each retry. So it would blow the theoretical fuse, and then it would wait 1 second and it would try that circuit again. If that circuit was below our fuse limit, it would allow it to operate. So if you were in a long sweeping corner and it blew your fuel pump, well, you're going to lose power and it's going to straighten you up a little bit. You're going to let off of it because you noticed something. Well, now instead of your car being, stuck on the side of the track, now you've got a check engine light or some sort of warning when you blew this thing, and it kind of lets you know, hey, lay back a little bit. Something happened. You're going to drive it easier. You're still going to drive it, but you're going to know, hey, something happened. I should probably take it a little bit easy until I can check it out. And so it really changes the way that you do things. And you saw how simple this was. If I wanted to choose another wire, I click assign. The ECU shows me all of my available resources. So I can pick any of these wires to control my fan. There's my 8 amp ones we talked about earlier. We keep going. And then it shows me all the ones I've assigned as well. And it tells me what they're assigned to. So if I'm like, man, I really wanted to use a 25 amp. Well, I can't because they're already being used. I would have to, get rid of my injector power or get rid of my coil power or get rid of my fuel pump to use one of these for something else. So it's really, really intuitive. It doesn't give me 9 million things to pick. It only lets me pick what is physically available or what I could use. And then from there, you're done. Like that's it. You run this wire from the Nexus R5 directly to your fan, and that's it. There's no setting up any switches. We've already told it we want it to turn on at 185. So we've already set up when it comes on and when it goes off. earlier we talked about a keypad. So if someone wanted to go through and have like an override for their fan, like it's not 185 degrees, but they want the fan on anyway, maybe to try to cool the car down between rounds even farther, whatever they want. Simple. Override switch. We just click this little checkbox. It lights up red again here because we've turned something on, but we didn't assign it. So then we just go to assign and we can pick anything we want to trigger it off of, including a keypad or something of the sort if we want to. So the use of the software is really, really easy. And then, like I said, if you do get stuck, like we talked about earlier, you click help, you click remote help, and there you go. I'll be controlling your computer. I can walk you through what you want to know. Like I said, within 10 seconds or so if your internet's fast. The system is very, very capable and very, very easy to use, but not easy enough that if you wanted to really do some custom things, you can still set that stuff up as well. We call it generics. So
Okay.
I can program any of these to do basically anything I want. So if all of the features and functions that we have, if there's something in here that doesn't exist, then I can just build it on my own. So do you have any questions or anything that you want to see or me to go over for you?
Well, I got a question here from Thomas Drake, and he says, I see multiple computer boxes listed. Do they all run this software, or is this just for their Nexus device?
So that's a really interesting question, because as of about, I'd say 8 or 9 months ago, our older ECUs, the Elite series, the ones that are sitting here behind me, if they saw it earlier, those use their own software. Well, when we released the Nexus ECU, we released this new software. Within a couple months, we had a lot of people request that, hey, we really like this software. It flows, it navigates easy. We really like it. We want to use it on our older ECU. So unlike most companies, instead of just saying, sorry, you have to buy the new latest and greatest, we actually made the software backwards compatible with the older ECUs. So all of our current ECUs, the Elite series and the Nexus series, use the NSP software. And when the Elites moved to this software, they actually gained a lot of features that they didn't have before, or upgraded those features they did have. Like data logging, specifically, you got an additional 20 channels of data logging when you upgraded from the ESP software to the NSP. You also got a built-in oscilloscope, faster comms, all kinds of stuff, and it was 100% free. We didn't charge for that. We basically took an old ECU and taught it new tricks.
So if we go to the racetrack and we race this weekend and we get back to the shop on Monday, just hook the laptop up and download all the info from the weekend.
Yeah.
Make a file for it, and then we can take that file and go either right into an engineering meeting and study everything, or take it to for example, take it to a engine dyno, and they can plug it in and they can run an engine and show it, completely on the dyno, just like it raced, correct?
Yeah, 100%. The Nexus R5 has what I would call a motorsports grade data logger built into it. It will do up to 500 channels. 300 of those channels are at a 1 millisecond sample rate. So if you can see my screen, we'll go over here where it says data logger. We can trigger how the data logger works. But right now it's set up off a throttle position greater than 50%. You can also just tell it that it's always on, or put it on a switch, because I know a lot of guys like having that data log switch on the back of the car. They're used to it. So there you go. You can still set it up that way. And then I have all of my channels over here, and I can search if I'm looking for something specific, like we'll say, ignition channels, and I can click on it, click add to group. And now that channel is in my group with a 1 millisecond sample rate. So 1 millisecond is 1,000 times a second. This thing will take a sample and store that data for you to go back over at a future time. And like I said, we can do 300 channels at 1 millisecond sample rates. It'll do 500 channels total. When you talk to most drag racers, they can't even think of 100 channels that they want to look at, let alone 500 that this box is capable of.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say the same thing. I'm sitting there shaking my head thinking that kind of sampling. I mean, and at the same time, how do you, I know the engineers, I mean, they probably do backflips because it gives them an opportunity to look at something that is irrelevant in everybody else's mind. But in an engineer's mind, it's the most important thing of the day. You know what I'm trying to say? And you've given a channel where they can do that kind of stuff and get their satisfaction or get their questions answered. Because to me, the simple stuff, which I see here, it's there, but you've allowed it now to be expanded. I mean, almost to the nth degree. I mean, I don't, where else would you go and how much more stuff can you put on something like this? And don't tell me that there's more to go. Okay, please don't tell me that.
So there is actually more. So Thomas mentioned earlier that this thing is an ECU and a PDM and widebands, but it's
Yeah.
actually a lot more than that. It has built-in Wi-Fi, which sounds silly, but picture this. I don't know what kind of racing you're into, but picture a drag racer, okay? And you're going rounds. You get into the track, you got your parachute thrown up on the truck, on the trunk of the car, and the golf carts come to push you back around to run again, right? You get to stop at the pits for 5 minutes to refuel and look over, but you got to get back up to the lanes. You don't have any time to waste. Well, when do I have time to pull data? When do I get time to look at what's going on? The guy driving the car can't do it. He's still strapped in. He don't have a laptop with him. Well, with built-in Wi-Fi, I can be on the golf cart sitting there, Wi-Fi to the ECU that's in the car, 15 feet ahead of me. I'm looking at data on that 3-minute trip, pushing him back to the pits while they're refueling the car. And then while we're pushing it up to the lanes, I don't have to touch the car. And if you think about, road racing, time attack stuff, you got people that are trying to, change tires or add fuel during a pit stop or whatever. That's one less person has to touch the car. I can be 20 feet away sitting at a table and pull all the information I need to. Or we also have a little extender that you can get, a little antenna that goes like on the windshield of the car instead of the one that's built onto the side of the ECU. It'll reach about 300 feet. When I did that boat we spoke about earlier, I actually was able to stay connected to this thing while he was out on the water. 300 feet is a pretty good amount of time. And then in a road race car, say they're coming down pit lane, they have a problem. The driver doesn't know what it is. He don't want to stop, but he just wants to come through the pit lane doing, 15 miles an hour or whatever, whatnot. I can pull the data wirelessly while he's coming down pit lane, send him back out on the track, review the data. When he comes back through, I can send changes wirelessly. So I'm not just viewing data. I can do everything with the software wirelessly that I can do with a cable. So I can send data, I can review data, I can make changes. It's all live as long as I have that Wi-Fi connection. We go even one step farther. It has a 6-axis built-in G meter. So longitude, latitude, and vertical when it comes to G. And then it'll do pitch of the car, which you can use for wheelie control or stuff like that. Yaw of the car. So if it's sliding, and then roll of the car. And we can use that for anything we want, including safety features. If the car rolls over, I can tell the ECU to shut everything down because it notices the car's upside down. Or in a drag situation, if the car starts to get sideways, that yaw sensor is going to register that. Well, I can have it throw the chutes. The driver doesn't have to think about it. The ECU says, hey, we're going sideways, throw the parachutes, try to yank the back end straight and save it from tearing up this $500,000 Pro Mod. It's all infinitely programmable. If you can think it, you can do it. The only limitation is your knowledge with the software, and that's where we come in. Like I said, we're racers. I do this stuff for a living. I don't just read a manual to you when you call in. I can explain how this stuff works and how I've used it in real world situations. So, like I said, the system's infinite. You can do anything. And it does scare people. A lot of people hear that and they're like, man, I want something simpler. Well, the problem with simple stuff is eventually you're going to realize it's simple. It might be complex at first, but a year down the road, you don't want to look at this ECU that you spent $5,000 on and think, man, I wish it did more. Man, I wish it did this. My buddy has a different system and it does this. You'll never run into that problem with this computer. It will do anything you want as long as you know how to make it do it.
Well, see, I told you not to tell me this, and now you told me.
Yeah.
Okay, Thomas, you quit smiling like you're doing right now, because the thing is, it's amazing, because when you started talking about the cable side of it, I don't know how many times, when they come in and engineers are trying to plug into the car and they got laptops on top of the car, and you're trying to talk to the driver, and then all of a sudden you're trying to make measurements or do this or do that. And it's like, everybody get away from the car. You're driving me crazy right now. I gotta see this. I gotta see that. You guys are leaning all over everything. They're trying to do what they're supposed to be doing. Don't get me wrong. Okay. But from a crew chief standpoint, sometimes it's at the wrong place at the wrong time, especially if you got a serious situation going on. And I know they're trying to get me some information so we can solve the problem. But in this case, I mean, I think it's phenomenal that, if you're trying to, maintain, not go down a lap, or the idea of the Wi-Fi being available.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
blows
you
my
could
mind.
like
It blows my
in
mind.
in a road race scenario. I mean, you can have guys that are sitting on top of their pit box, and when the car comes in, like Nick said, for the pit, you're pulling that information. Like you said, you're not in the way. You're able to sit on top of the pit box, remote into the car. You're not in the way of everybody else that's doing the mechanical side of it.
Like I say, it's almost a nightmare has come true. Now we have something that will really help. And again, this is another page as we move forward. I think in any series, I'm just wondering when NASCAR is going to allow it to happen.
I mean,
You know what I'm saying?
you set up the meeting and I'll show up, Jeff.
Okay. I'll get the meeting set up. I'll let you do the sale.
Perfect.
Yeah. No, I mean, it has been amazing the way technology continues to move forward. And this is another perfect example. And it's a little bit like, what Thomas Drake said, there's so many computer channels, but you guys, you've got it. Let's just don't stop here. Let's go ahead and expand and anticipate what's going to be coming next. So we're already ahead of the curve. I guess this is what I'm looking at. This is really ahead of the curve, and you're ready for the next wave of ideas or technology that somebody wants to take a look at. Am I
Correct.
wrong about
and
that?
I mean, and that's the thing, like, like Nick pointed on about the chutes. I mean, you can go in to look at this from a safety aspect. I mean, you can shut things off, turn things on. You can look at it from a safety aspect. You can look at it from a performance aspect. As far as, like I said, all of the data that you can get out of the vehicle is just only going to help your program.
It really does go, like, the safety aspects, an important side to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So think about, like, most of these systems, they have to be tuned, right? You have to have somebody pushing the buttons on a dyno to get it dialed in, the first couple times around. Well, you get some of these big high horsepower pro mods, and the guy driving the car doesn't need to worry about what's going on with the computer, but you have to have somebody looking at that stuff while this stuff's happening. So the guy in the car got a fire suit on, has a helmet, he's safe. He's got a transmission beside him. He's got, a 4,000 horsepower engine in front of him. He needs to worry about safety. He doesn't need to worry about looking at a computer, Well, it comes back to the Wi-Fi. I can have a dedicated guy sitting at a table 30 feet away, watching the engine, making sure everything's happy, tuning the engine, where his only job is to tune that motor. And the guy in the car's only job is to make sure the engine sounds good, feels safe, is safe. And so now, instead of relying on one person to handle one job, we've split it up and let people focus on specific things. And that goes, a long way. You don't have to have somebody sitting in the car anymore trying to tune this thing. This is a funny story, but I worked with a Pikes Peak car last year, and me and Chris, one of our marketing guys here, we couldn't, neither of us could fit in the car. There was no passenger seat. There was a fire suppression bottle on the passenger seat. Well, I needed to make changes to this car, and I needed to see it in real time, and we didn't have a dyno. So we actually had a rented Tesla. Hopefully they don't hear about this, but we were at a racetrack, and we were beside this race car, and I was Wi-Fi'd into the car from another car. We were basically driving beside him while he was, doing flat shift testing and stuff like that. And I was able to make changes, and I'm safe. I'm strapped in, got a seatbelt. normally, and I hate to say this, but like I would be sitting on top of that fire suppression bottle in a car with a roll cage with no seat belt, no seat. And that's extremely unsafe. I've done it because that's what I had to do before we had the ability to do other things, you know, but now
Yeah.
it does make things a lot safer. But it's not just safety, you know, you get the speed of being able to turn things in and out, one less person around the car to be in your way. You know, there's a lot of benefits to this stuff that people don't realize when they hear, oh, Wi-Fi, they think, oh, that's gimmicky, that sounds silly, you know, but then you explain all these other benefits of it, and it really starts to paint a picture of, man, you know, I can really use this thing to do a lot of cool stuff. So.
Well, I'm not trying to tell a story to top your story, but I'll tell you something real quick. In the mid 80s, we were doing testing down at Talladega, and we were trying to do exhaust temperatures. And Daryl's out there, had everything, you know, had the gauges up on the dash. And I'm talking to him on the radio. I said, okay, we're going around the racetrack. Okay, give me some temperatures going around here as you go into turn one. And I wanted to talk to me about the exhaust temperatures. And I'd get, you know, one or two numbers, and then it'd go quiet. And then he'd get in the back straightaway. He'd give me 3 or 4 numbers. I said, dude, you know, we need to have more information. You got to go down there and tell us what the exhaust temperatures are. And about, I don't know, 5 or 6 times of him asking for that temperature deal, he said, listen, damn it. You want to know the number, the exhaust? You get in here and write it down yourself. I can't drive this race car at 200 miles an hour and give you exhaust temperatures.
You
And
have other
guess
things
what?
to worry about.
I raised my hand, got a helmet, and sat down behind him in the Y part of right behind the driver's seat. No seat belt, just a helmet.
Yep.
I don't know why I put it on. I just keep hitting my head on roll bars and started writing down temperatures. And we ran 6 laps, and I'm writing down exhaust temperatures for him. But at the same time, it's like, this is where a fool and an idiot collided at one time.
Yep.
You know,
Like,
I'm the
you look
fool,
away
he was
with
the
what
idiot
you've
to ride
gotten
me
away
around.
with. And you're like, man, I'm lucky to still be alive with the dumb things I've done over the years.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I have
obviously-
empathy for you. Hey, real quick before we run, we had Thomas Drake that got a couple of, Francis, can I answer these questions? Get them answer the questions. real quick,
Absolutely.
please, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
Thomas Drake wants to know, do you sell adapters or harnesses, or do we have to wire it all by hand?
so
And then James wants to know, can you connect suspension sensors and other non-sensors to your data logger? This thing is amazing. And last but not least, do we have a linear position sensor supported? Can you guys kind of grasp all that real quick?
As far as the harnesses and adapters, we do make things for certain makes and models. Obviously, these are for race applications, but what we do is we allow we have terminated harnesses. Everybody has an LS engine that's in their vehicles now. So we have an LS terminated harness. We have RB, 2JZ. We sell terminated harnesses that make the install function a lot easier. As far as the chassis side, with the Nexus, you would have to wire it because you have so many options from scratch. You can't really make a plug and play for that. Not to say that won't come down the road, make a chassis harness, but as of right now, that's the way it's set up.
and then as for the suspension sensors, we do offer linear position sensors that you can use for shock travel and stuff like that. And there is a pre-built function in the software that allows you to set up a shock travel sensor on all 4 corners of the car. And then you can data log that and review it to help make changes to the suspension based on the real live data that you're seeing from the car. So yes, you can 100% do that.
All right, last but not least, I don't want to leave Eden Young out, the possibility of a steering wheel can pad to place some functions directly into the wheel rather than a can pad placed elsewhere.
So funny enough, I've actually had a dealer do this. They took one of our CAN keypads and they mounted it to the center of a steering wheel where they could hit those buttons on the steering wheel itself. But I believe this guy is not necessarily a CAN pad, but he wants the buttons on the steering wheel to be a CAN message to the ECU. And yes, you can set that stuff up. It does take a little bit of ingenuity with like a CAN bridge or something like that. But yes, you can do, steering wheel based CAN buttons or just mount a CAN keypad directly to the steering wheel. Both of those are options. So.
Well, guys, I told you, you show that little computer deal. We got some interest going really quick. And Thomas, Nick, really great get a chance to talk to you guys today. Love what you're doing. Continued success. And Francis, Judy, whoo, my head's spinning.
Well, no, absolutely. Great webinar, guys. Thank you so much. I
Thanks for
have a
having
long
us.
history with Haltech. You know, I visited the factory in Australia. It was one of my first trip to Australia. I went to visit them, and so it's been fun to watch this company really grow and become such a big player in the world of motorsport. So thank you so much for being with us today. This webinar has been recorded. It will be posted later on the EPARTRADE platform and distributed through our different channels, newsletters, social media, etc. We will be back next week. We're going to be talking EV racing next week, which is a little bit of a hot topic right now. And so Jeff, we'll see you in 2 weeks or probably 3, because Brad is going to do back-to-back. So thank you very much for being with us today. Let's go racing, and we'll see you back next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to EPARTRADE.